co-founder Arun Kaul, who's CFA and our CIO, and a number of highly established money managers that we asked to join us today so we could have a broad discussion around the current state of the financial markets and try to get some ideas from these guys. What we're going to start with is talk about the economy and specifically macro themes that you all see. So the first question is, if you are an advisor and you're trying to get a sense of what's happening in the world, what are the key things that you think we should be paying attention to? And we'll start with Larry Riddell of St. James Investment Management Investment Company out of Dallas, Texas. Larry, I'll turn that question over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Craig. Yeah, I think it's an incredibly challenging time to be an advisor or in our seat managing a portfolio. And really, the conditions that have been created are historically in some ways unique, at least unique in recent history. Since 1996 in long-term capital management, increasingly central banks globally have been increasingly accommodative with a variety of tools. And it's really invited, in our mind, a lot of malinvestment. You've got debt. We'll just take this country. You've got government debt eclipsing $28 trillion. You've got consumer debt and corporate debt that is, above half of the GDP of the country. And but then you have, again, interest rates suppressed down to zero. And so tying a bow on kind of what these perverse conditions create, and we're seeing manifest itself, we're getting a lot of inflationary pressures. Certainly the definition for inflation can vary. So it's not the classic wage inflation that maybe we had in the 70s, although that might be coming at some point. But anyone who's going to a grocery store, certainly purchasing lumber or coffee, it's really become very evident in the last several months especially that there is a lot of inflation out there. Certainly our policymakers are arguing that it's transitory. We'll see.
Thank you, Larry. Let's pose that same question to Arthur Weiss of Kingsland Growth Advisors. Arthur, go ahead.
The lesson is we can't use the past to predict the future. We have to look at what is happening, and that's where everyone's focus should be. The focus should be on how fast is the recovery, how permanent are the changes that took place during COVID. Every person on the globe's life changed, and some of those changes are going to be permanent. Our focus, as everyone should be, is how permanent are those changes. There will be permanent winners and losers after all of this. I think importantly, we do see inflationary pressures. The inflationary pressures, I believe, are due in large part to just-in-time inventory going awry. When corporations decide to carry no inventory and then everybody's scrambling all at the same time, it's causing inflationary pressures that we haven't seen in a very long time. I'm of the view that they won't last long, but we don't know. And I think that we need to monitor it and try to understand what is permanent and what is fleeting. And of course, everyone is interested in when will the Fed tighten? Will it tighten too quickly? Will that lead to a recession? Or are we going to remain with monetary policy as loose as it is now? There are some that would argue that our economy needs to reinvent itself to some extent, that this monetary policy is allowing companies to make investments to, in fact, do that. It also allows us to invest in infrastructure at low rates. So it's not clear, but I think that the focus needs to be on how things have changed in a permanent way, and that's where I'm spending my time.
Wayne Ferbert from Alpha DNA Investment Management. What's your view of things from a macro worldview?
Yeah, I think there's two huge uncertainties for advisors right now. Right? I mean, one thing we all know advisors want to do is they know they have to have equity exposure, but they also know they have to be able to provide some sort of risk management for their clients, and typically that's done through diversification. So the traditional methods of diversification. So the first problem with them is the traditional methods of diversification, which would have a material exposure to fixed income, is going to be really challenging for them, given the forward return potential for fixed income. Larry referred to it in his comments that with interest rates at historic lows, it's really difficult to forecast any sort of material appreciation, material return for fixed income, given where treasury rates are and where the risk-free rate is, especially if you assume that there's going to be an increase in rates, which there almost has to be in the next 1 to 3 years. And so fixed income is not going to provide the ballast to the portfolio. So where does the advisor get that ballast, right? How does he end up being able to deploy defensive positions in his portfolio? And the reason he wants diversification in defensive positions is all the uncertainty that we currently face. And that's the second part. And the part of the uncertainty I think advisors need to worry the most about is there's a very significant disconnect between prices and actual earnings performance, revenue and earnings growth performance in the markets right now. That displacement is fairly significant. In 2020, we definitely saw the winners were companies that benefited from COVID, right? Benefited from lack of mobility. However, they were bid up probably well past even the benefit to their earnings. And now we're going to start to see a transition more than likely of companies that are going to benefit from the reopening. However, the market's clearly trying to get well ahead of that, right? And the market's trying to bid those companies up early. And so if you're an advisor, how do you position the equity side of your portfolio given all that uncertainty, right? Because there are pockets in the markets of just real displacement between the company's real earnings and their price. And so that's going to be the two significant issues that end up driving return in clients' portfolios for the next, say, 1 to 2 to 3 years, and advisors are going to have to navigate that minefield.